E41 Marketplace Ministries. It's all about your business, and it's all about our Father's business. It's ministry outside the box. No matter what your role is in the business world, E41 Ministries is a special place where we can walk worthy of the vocation wherewith we are called, just as Ephesians 4:1 commands us. In today's busy and frenetic world, it's a blessing to know that God has a plan to bring hope, comfort, and peace through Marketplace Ministry. The E41 Marketplace Ministry of the Fellowship, it's a kingdom-building business.
I'm Kerry Fink with E41 TV. That's an outreach of E41 Marketplace Ministries, which is an outreach of the Fellowship of Dallas, Texas area and all throughout the world. And E41 Marketplace Ministries is kind of based around the Bible verse Ephesians 4:1, which is walk worthy in the vocation to wherewith ye are called. And so one of the things we like to do with E41 is explore people's experience both in the church side, inside the walls of the church, but also outside on the other days of the week when we're working in the marketplace. And hopefully we're doing our job to bring hope and encouragement to people who have not yet found the joy of Jesus in that experience. And so we're actually today privileged to be on location. We're in Mesquite, Texas, which is in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. And we are privileged to be in the very beautiful Family Cathedral in Mesquite, Texas, where we are actually enjoying great sessions, great teaching from Dr. Dave Robinson as part of the E41 Marketplace Ministers Conference. And throughout these days of teaching, there's been a lot of impartation, there's been meetings with the staff, there's been a lot of training and equipping sessions and things to help people really carry the gospel into the marketplace and really help grow the kingdom in that respect. So I just want to introduce our guest today. Thank you, Dave, for being with us.
Great to be
and
with
thank you, Pastor, for being with us.
Good to be
It's good
here.
to have you here. So Dave, you guys, when you were talking about E41, I know you have a lifetime of experience in both. You said you had 40 years in ministry, 40 years in business. No, it's not 80 years total that way, but give us a little bit of your background.
Okay, I came home from Southeast Asia in 1966 and actually got involved with an apprenticeship program at Westinghouse Electric Company and thought I would spend the rest of my life there. But in the local church, they asked me if I would start a Royal Ranger program, which I had no idea what that was, but I had spent a lot of years in the Boy Scouts, and that's kind of how I got started in the church world. And it was during the time I was ministering in the local church there, the Lord said, I want you to go to Bible college and prepare yourself for ministry in the church world. And after I had gotten involved and came back home, the Lord began to give me opportunities to serve in the marketplace. I served with Kmart Corporation in their training program, and also several other corporations got involved in marketing and sales and leadership development. And for a while I thought the Lord was kind of confused about where He wanted me. I said, do I belong in the church world or do I belong in the marketplace? And He never would answer me till about 10 years ago when He gave me the essence of the book Idle in the Marketplace, and He said, now do you understand why I had you in both worlds? Because now I want you to spend the rest of your ministry life helping to form that team between the Ephesians 4:1 Marketplace ministers and the Ephesians 4:11 to 16 ministers who have the assignment to equip those that go to the marketplace every day for their ministry and for their calling. And so God has begun to really open the doors for that opportunity to help churches and marketplace leaders, along with coaching leaders, which I've also done about 250 days a year for the last 10 years.
Well, that's good, and we're going to explore a lot of that. Let me ask you, Pastor Harry, we were talking just before the cameras were rolling that you really also, just like Dr. Dave, you have that both sides of the fence, if you would, expertise. You've been on the corporate world side and you've been pastoring this church for many years. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, Kerry, I worked, basically had two jobs other than pastoring this great church in my entire life, and one of those was in sales with 3M Company, known for their Scotch tape.
Right.
And many people think that's all they sold, but that was just their biggest and the most profitable product. But they also sold many other products. They sold data processing equipment. And that's basically what I sold with 3M Company, was data processing equipment. And then my only other job I had besides 3M Company and pastoring this church was with a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems, which was founded by Ross Perot, and eventually General Motors bought them out, and you know the rest of the story. But having said that, that's correct. Having been a pastor's son or a minister's son all my life, little did I know really that while I was working out there in the marketplace, and even though to some degree I was ministering, you know, to those I came in contact with, but having said that, it was not really at the forefront of what I was doing. I was trying to be a leading salesman in the company and meet my quotas and make money and all that kind of thing, you know. And but now having said that, you fast forward 20 years later, and as I'm pastoring this church, that really gave me insight to what's taking place out there in the marketplace, and is helping us now as we're going forward, teaching our church with the help of Brother Robinson here. And so it's kind of an exciting venture for us that I think back of all those years in the marketplace, and now here I am, and I do have maybe a little bit of extra insight of what's going on out there, to be able to teach and train our people going out each and every day to their level of occupation, whatever that may be, and to realize that they are truly a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And they will come in contact, Brother Kerry, with people that I will never have the opportunity to associate with. I'll never have the opportunity to lead them to the Lord. I'll never have the opportunity that they will have to tell them the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'll never have the opportunity to pray for them if they're sick, in order that they may be healed. So it's really exciting place where Family Cathedral Church is right now, really getting excited about this marketplace ministry.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because I made the comment, we've talked to several people who are very active members in the church here who've also been part of the conference, and we were talking with them, and there's no doubt that your membership is really sort of on the cutting edge. It's almost like intuitively they feel that this is their role, that they need to be part of the process, and maybe for one reason because it's just simply a matter of exposure. The amount of time that people gather together within the four walls of the church represents a certain number of hours per week, but then almost by definition they're going to spend 40 hours at work, so they're going to come into contact with people on a whole different level. They're going to walk in Monday morning and say, you know, man, let me tell you what happened to me over the weekend. So it's a perfect opportunity for ministry. So let me ask you guys how this came together, the idea of having the Marketplace Ministry Conference. I know you have been traveling and literally all over the world sharing the concept and sharing the precepts behind it to say, let's motivate, let's complete the circle, what they're learning Sunday in church. Let's make sure that they are now empowered and encouraged to take that back into the workplace. But how did this come together?
I'll let Pastor share that. He had a staff member that I guess heard me down in Waco.
Correct. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. One of our staff members, one of our pastors, went to Waco to a conference that Brother David was speaking at, and he came back and said, man, Pastor, we've got to have Brother David come and speak at our church. And what's interesting is I'd known Brother David for years through our organization called the Fellowship, and you know, we'd interacted and been to banquets together and sessions together there at our conferences through the years with the Fellowship, but we'd never really connected. And I was standing at the front of our auditorium back in November, and for whatever reason, I was trying to think of our theme and a vision for the year 2015, where we going, what direction, and for some reason that came back to me about marketplace ministry. And you know, we're out on the streets right now. We feed homeless people, and we've got a big biker ministry here at the church that goes out every month, and other ministry, jail and prison ministry, and so you know, we're out there in the marketplace. maybe for lack of better wording, dabbling in it and doing our best, and maybe even better than most, again, because of my relationship, having worked in the world until I was 45 years old before I came full-time in ministry. And so that's always been a niche of mine, and I would think probably that has come forth in my messages. And hey, while you're out there, tell people about Jesus, lead people to Jesus. We're not talking about beating over the head with a 20-pound Bible. We're talking about saying what's happening, what's taking place at Family Cathedral Church, and you can have the same type of relationship with Jesus Christ that I have. Take them to lunch, whatever. And so anyway, having said all that, I leaned over to one of my pastors and I said, I'm going to get a hold of David Robinson, and I'm going to see if he's available in January to help us kick off the new year, which our theme was Beyond the Walls. And yes, and so I called Brother David, and he happened to have the second week of January available, and I said, book it, man. And so here we are, 7-8 weeks later, and yes, it's been a great week. He's taught us a lot about Marketplace Ministry.
Well, I was gonna tell you that from all the reaction and all the things that I've heard from different people who've been attending, one of the things that they're so happy. I had a lady who said, you wouldn't believe this. On Saturday, I was crying, and she said I was crying because I feel such a burning desire to be out and reach the people with the good news. And she said, but I also have never felt myself or seen myself as being like a pastor of a church. And so this is what's confusing me. She said, suddenly, as this has all come together, I've gotten a revelation of this is how I fit. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was gonna ask you, Dave, you see this church and what's happening here as a very forward thinking. And I know one of the things that you've said in the past, you oftentimes find yourself in a position in other situations where you're talking to pastors and explaining them why this needs to happen, and that there is almost sometimes a resistance within the quote the full-time. It's like us and them instead of, hey, we're all in this together. Can you kind of comment on that?
Yeah, I was talking to one of my grandkids here a couple weeks ago, and they showed me a Facebook post that kind of asks you to say, what kind of animal are you? And so they said, Pap, what kind of animal would you be? And I said, probably a salmon, because I'm always swimming upstream. And that's kind of the way it's been throughout my life in ministry. The Lord has always asked me to take on a direction that is not the traditional to that point. And so when the young ones asked me about ministry and what's it like, I said two things that come to mind over the years. One, it's like throwing mud up against the wall. You just keep throwing until some of it sticks, and if you get tired and the mud dries up, don't worry, your tears will moisten it up, but just keep throwing, and eventually you're going to have something built there. And the other one's the old Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if you remember those, but
Sure.
Two little dials, and you just about the time you think you've got what you want dialed in, either God or somebody else bumps it, and there you go. You have to start all over again. So E41, the book Idol in the Marketplace, the whole concept, though it might be new to a lot of people, it's really a first century church concept. When the early church spilled out of that upper room after the day of Pentecost, and they didn't have buildings to go to, they had no organization, they had no denomination, they just simply had the power of God, the knowledge of God, and they went to the streets, and 38 of the 39 power miracles recorded in the book of Acts took place in the marketplace.
Wow.
And so this is not new with me, though it is new to most of the church today. And so I'm, just simply trying to build a relationship between Ephesians 4:1 ministers, and they really are ministers. They're not lay people. The term laos, which refers to the people of God, is in Scripture, and the term kleros, which from which we get our English word clergy, they're there, but they've kind of morphed into something different than what they originally were 1800 years ago. And so we are just simply helping churches become one team to win and influence their marketplace for the kingdom.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting when you were closing service a night or so ago in connection with it, you said, I'm going to have to rechange my thinking because you were specifically referring to how you wanted to refer to the congregation, and you said, now I'm going to be calling you ministers, your marketplace ministers, and you're going to empower them for that. I was even thinking, we were talking with Pastor Allen, who leads your men's ministry, and he was talking about now they've even moved out of the home groups and they're moving to coffee shops and things like that to do the men's sessions, because that gives them an opportunity to interact with the people around them. So you're already very proactive in this whole concept. Anyway, what are the things that you might take away from this? So you say this is how we're going to charge forward in 2015 based on the things that have come out of the conference.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think my goal, and it may have to be ingrained in me as well going forward, that we don't have several hundred members anymore. We have several hundred ministers that are leaving out here. And you said something earlier, Brother Kerry, that stuck with me. If you think about it, we're at the church inside these four walls. If you make every service, 5-6 hours a week, and there's 168 or whatever hours in a week. So you've got 160 plus hours out there and only 5 or 6 hours here. So it only makes sense that we need to go to another level in our thinking of what are we really doing here, And yes, we need this. Hey, I'm all about the church, man. I've cut my teeth in it, and this is what I do, so having said that, I'm for Family Cathedral Church. I don't leave the wrong connotation here, but I think we got to change our thinking a little bit and our mindset a little bit and start realizing we can accomplish a lot out there, maybe even more out there than what we can accomplish in here. Maybe the church, just maybe the church should be a place where really we come to on Sunday morning and celebrate what we did out there all week long. Does that sound like?
That's absolutely.
And so, that's the mindset that I'm going to try to develop in my own mind. And again, I've had some of that. And, I'm not trying to, brag on this church. Maybe I'm trying to brag on this church. I don't know. but I love this church, and I defend this church. But they do a pretty good job, and we've been doing a pretty good job of that. But I think what we need to do is enhance and go to another level with what we're doing. And the psalmist David, a man that God said, that's a man after my own heart, he had a teachable spirit. One thing about David, he had, teach me, O Lord, all through Psalms, teach me, O Lord. Well, that's where we are. We want to learn more and more about how we can be more effective in the marketplace. And so I'm asking the Lord, as Brother Dave concludes this evening with our conference here, as he leaves, to retain. I've been taking notes and writing notes in my Bible and underlining scripture, as well as taking notes in our little notebook there. So going forward, we'll not forget what the man of God here has come to teach us about. And I guess what I'm saying is, or one of the things I'm saying is, I don't want him to leave, then we forget about it till he comes back again. Let's take what we've learned and do something with it. And going forward.
Well, it's an absolutely interesting discussion, because we've had so many people who, I've had a pastor say, where do we get the people in the pulpit? We get them out of the pews. Where do we get them out of the pews? We have to go out in the streets and get them. In fact, if you think about what happened in the New Testament, Jesus spent more time, talking to people just where they were, just where he found them, just in whatever situation. And there was a comment that one of the people that we interviewed made about the fact that there was a time when they really just didn't feel like they were worthy to set foot in the church. They just were at a place where all the things that those people would look down on me. They don't, and so it also seems, and I'd like to have your comments on this. It also seems like one of the things that a marketplace minister is able to do is kind of bridge that gap to say, no, we're just as messed up as anybody else, but like I think you use the term where we're the beggar showing another beggar where to find the bread or something.
Sure. Yeah, evangelism really can be reduced down to one beggar telling another beggar where the bread is. And that came out of the Great Depression era in this country, when there were 20% of the men in this country were out of work, sometimes closer to 30%. Wow. And they would ride the rails and hitchhike from town to town and trying to find something to eat. Yeah. And so one of the guys that had been there earlier said, hey, here's where you can find some bread. In fact, there was a story I used in a message years ago entitled The Bum's Mark. And what that meant was when a man who was looking for work and some days just looking for a meal, he would be going by, and people in those days used to sit out on their porches. They don't do that much anymore, but he would say, you know, can I do something for a plate of food? And the people would say, sure, come on in, and they would let him work a little bit and then feed him. And so as he left and the people weren't looking, he would go to the bottom of the downspout at the corner of the house and put a mark there, and that let everybody else coming later know, hey, there's a friendly person here, and they'll feed you. Yeah. And so to me, that's what we need to have a mark on us, right, that when we go out there, that, hey, this person's a friendly person. They're not there to judge. You know, Christians too many times are like searchlights. Instead of showing them the way to salvation, they show them the sin in their life. And none of us are perfect. We're all working toward that goal. But we just simply want to let people know, hey, there's a way out of the darkness you're in. There's hope for the problem you're facing. And I think we have a great message. We've had one for 2,000 years. Absolutely. We've just kept it locked up in the church house, and we need to become a little more emboldened.
And it seems particularly at this stage when oftentimes you'll see a headline someplace that says Christianity under attack. You know, we've made the comment, had the discussion back and forth that sometimes using the 5-letter word Jesus in the office could get you in worse trouble than using a 4-letter word. You know, it's crazy, but it seems like oftentimes that's the case. And now that we've had generations grow up in schools where you can't have prayer, you know, all these kind of, you know, you offended me because the 10 Commandments are on the wall and all this kind of politically correct stuff, it seems like there's a real opportunity, because for many people that could be the first time that somebody has acquainted them with what Jesus can do for them. And do you have an insight, having been on both sides of that fence? Yeah.
You know, as Brother Dave was speaking there, it's really, we make it more complex, I think, than what it really is. It's really pretty simple, that we are to equip the people, equip the saints for what? The work of the ministry. Right. And as Brother Dave was talking, I was here and I was thinking, there are people out there, they are not going to darken the door of a church. They've been hurt in the past, or they weren't raised that way. They've never been in the church. Right. They don't care anything about coming to the church. And I think something that I think is fair to submit to the equation is this. There are people beyond these walls out there that if we, as our ministers go forth out of this church to minister to them, if we don't reach them out there, they will never know the love of Jesus in their heart. Because they're not going to come to this church, they're not going to come to the church down the street, they're not going to they're not going to go to this church over here. And so if we don't reach them out there, they will never come here. So that's just an interesting take that I think we've got to really, because you know what this involves? This is eternal value. Yes. This is not, well, I bought the wrong car, so I'm going to sell it and go buy another one. Or I shouldn't have bought this house. Well, okay, I'm going to sell it and go buy another one. No, you know, there's no do-overs in this deal. Yeah. You know, just one life, it'll soon be past. Only what we do for Jesus is going to last. It's appointed unto man wants to die. I'm trying to preach here. Right. But after death is a judgment. So it's very important what we are doing here, sharing the love of Jesus out there to a lost and a dying world. And I love what Brother David has taught us this week. Did Jesus go to church? The last time I read, I believe it's Luke 4:16. As his custom was, he went to the church on Sunday, stood up to read. So as his custom was, yeah, I believe he went to the church on Sunday, just like I do and you do, and you know. But the other days of the week, he was out there,
Right.
and he was, you know, laying hands on people and saving people and delivering people and healing people, and it all took place out there. So, but that's got to register in our minds. It's registered in my mind, but not to the degree that it is registering today.
Good.
And so in my own mind, I'm just wanting to take it to another level. There are some, it has not registered in their mind yet at all.
Right.
And so they're at that level, we've got to get it across. We've got to equip the saints. How are we going to do that? By teaching and ministering and constantly bringing it to the forefront. And, you know, I was thinking of a story. Brother David mentioned 2 or 3 times this week that his beautiful wife told him, I believe it was him, a time or two, or some preacher's wife told the preacher, so when are you going to stop preaching about that? And he said, when they start doing it. And he reminded me of a story, Brother David, about the deacon board called the pastor in and said, man, you've been preaching on this for weeks. When are you going to change your subject? And he said, well, when they start doing this, then I'll go to my next sermon. So that's kind of where we are. You know, we just got to keep this at the forefront.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a pastor. Mother's Day is going to be coming up. Hey, we'll be preaching about mothers,
Sure.
Father's Day, Fathers, Easter, the resurrection. Sure, we're going to incorporate all that. But as often as not just for the month of January, or God forbid, the week of January the 11th,
Right.
this particular week, but throughout the year, sometime even in December,
Sure.
we're going to hear about Beyond the Walls. And I'm already thinking the month of December that we're going to look back and
Yes.
maybe have some testimonies.
Yes.
How did Beyond the Walls change your life this year? Come up here and share a testimony with us of what you did out there beyond these walls.
Oh, that's good.
As it relates to the love of Jesus.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Dave, we have about a minute left. I just wanted to ask you to close up. What if you were to look at the camera and you were speaking to a pastor or somebody who's in a church, what advice would you give them to pursue the Marketplace ministry? Or how would you encourage them?
Well, the first thing I would share is don't be fearful that we're trying to eliminate what you've been doing and the church has been doing all these years. The church has done marvelous things. I love the church. Like Pastor Harry said, I grew up in the church. My father was a pastor. I am what I am today because of what I learned when I was there in those services. All I'm advocating is that we add this last component to what we've done for so many years and take it to the marketplace. And our first effort should be to try to warm people to ourselves, and then the Holy Spirit will give us the opportunity to win them to Christ.
Right.
And somebody who's warmed to you, won to Christ, I guarantee you they're going to want to know, where do you go to church?
Absolutely.
I want to follow you there.
They want some of that. Absolutely.
Amen.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. This has really been an amazing time. I think it is going to be amazing to look a year down the road and see what kind of testimonies come back.
Right.
So thank you both gentlemen for being here with us today. And I'm Kerry Fink for E41 TV. Thank you for joining us, and God bless you.